Hi, I'm Rigger, this is Your Right, and I'm going to do my best to make some quick list videos before the launch of Volume 8, to get my thoughts out there. Real quick though, I'm going to shout out this last video I made that I put a lot of work into and I'd like for you all to see. This is how Halloween works in RWBY. I went in and planned out how Remnant has a celebration just like Halloween, how it came to be, how it works mechanically, and how it works in the rules of the world and the setting. It'll be linked in the description and in the iCard in the top right, so check it out if you're interested. Now, onto the list, and this is 10 things that will happen in Volume 8. Things that, looking into the setup, I fully expect that will certainly be occurring in the volume. I guess we'll see how close it is by the end. Number 1. Faenus Talk. Now, I fully expect this to be actually between Blake and Marrow. It was mentioned in the commentary for Volume 7 that they wanted them to have a discussion about the role of Faenus, and they sort of touched on it in one episode for a brief moment. I'd think there'd be no room for it in this battle. However, I get the strong feeling they'll attempt to shoehorn it in here. It feels like a plot point left dangling after Adam's death. It seemed like it should be a major plot point with the Faenus in Mantle, with the elections and everything, but we didn't really get there. So, given that, and that they mentioned they wanted to do it, it feels like something we're supposed to touch on in the roadmap of story before we leave Atlas in the big picture, so I assume it'll be squeezed in here somewhere. Number 2. The use of evolved semblances. This was a plot point, of course, first touched on in Volume 5, and then in the middle of Volume 7 we saw them training and talking about it, and then we saw it at the end of Volume 7 for RWBY taking down Harriet. So we saw what RWBYs can do, and we've seen hints of others yet to be addressed, Ren's in particular. This that we've seen for a brief moment just looks like Nora using her regular semblance for once, rather than some kind of advancement, but we'll see. Maybe she can now wrap herself in electricity like some weird version of Hazel's attacks. That'd be cool. But that's just speculation, I think she's just powering up to smash something. But we do also need to see what happened with Oscar, because he talked about his semblance and what's going on with this, and of course there's the magic involved. Jean also is yet to put into practice his ore extending advice from Vine, so we'll see if that does anything. Spoilers, it will do something eventually, it's not there for no reason, but we'll see if it comes out in this volume, which I expect it to. But especially in this kind of show, be it those ones talked about or others, a huge battle with, life-threatening situations is a great time to tap into new abilities or try something crazy, so expect to see those sort of things in this upcoming conflict. Also, tagging on to the end, I do think it will have the shonen power creep issue that all similar shows to this do, where the special version of their powers or their evolved semblances will just become the norm after a while. The thing they have to tap into that's super special that they need to save them will just become everyday. Basically the Super Saiyan effect, but that's neither here nor there. And at least here they do frame it as an evolving of the old powers rather than something new, so I guess that's something. Anyway, moving on. Number 3. The Grimm competition winner will fall flat or just be token. Okay, this one is more to do with outside factors than the narrative of the show, but I may as well address it. I'm not going to go into the controversy or anything, because if you know, you know, and if you don't need to worry about it. All that you need to know is that this Grimm won a design competition to be in the volume. Now, given those circumstances, I'm still sure it'll be there, but I think it'll just be there in a pretty minor fashion. But that's actually not to do with the controversy, I would have thought that anyway. In fact, I thought that since before the competition closed or anything like that. As far as I can see, I think one of two things will happen. It'll either be his death fodder in crowd shots taken out with all the other Grimm, or it'll be in one select team fight, aka they left a bit in the script that says, insert Grimm winner here, fight. Now, I do actually think that the second one is far more likely there, and that's not too bad. Basically the equivalent to the Sphinx fight in Volume 6, or possibly even the Geist in 7. Both of those were pretty memorable if it's done that way. I'm just not sure how much planning and time they're going to give to it. It seems much more likely it was something put at some animators' feet and they said, yeah, just use this design and put it in here. However, that's a little more upsetting when you see the actual Grimm that won, because it has a cool gimmick of changing through multiple forms and getting bigger, which would have made it much more memorable as a reoccurring fight through the show that got progressively harder. It could go through all the stages in one fight, but it's just not going to have the impact it could have had, which is a shame. But logically, they just couldn't have planned for that. They couldn't have known that beforehand, and it would have to be written in that way for it to work. And obviously, one Grimm is not the main focus of the volume, so that's just how I think it's going to be. Number 4. Winter leads the A-subs. A lot of people have guessed this one, but it's so likely that that's why it belongs on this kind of list. Anyway, as Ironwood's right hand, it makes sense she'd take up a position to lead the best agents they have against the coming conflict. This has a lot of repercussions, of course. Firstly, it will definitely be putting Winter in extreme danger as being part of the main defense against any sort of ground combat. Second, it's going to put her in either further opposition to Team RWBY and friends, which extra specially includes Weiss. which should be very interesting. We'll see how that goes. I don't actually have much more to say on this one, except just expect it to happen. And the fact that they're putting her in a position because the person that used to be in that position is dead, so they can tease that she might die, is definitely something they'll do. I don't think she will die, but that's speculation. Just expect them to lean on that fact. Number 5. The Happy Huntresses and Robin will be more central to the plot. I fully expect that while the Atlas forces and Salem's army come to blows, the Happy Huntresses, and likely Robin later, will be heading rescue efforts. In the pre-volume material, we see half of the team down in Mantle helping people escape to a place called The Crater. Expect the Happy Huntresses, and probably Robin later, to be helping defend people and evacuate Mantle into this secure location. This is important for 2 reasons. One is trying to minimize the deaths if there's the fall, and with the war just in general. But more importantly, it sets up Robin to be the de facto leader of Atlas once everything is over. The people and the survivors will be following her. Anyone who avoids the fall of Atlas and the conflict will be left under her to guide. Remember, Salem isn't explicitly here to kill people, or to even drop Atlas. She's here for the staff, and those other things just are byproducts of that, and the fact that she's using Grimm to do it. Not everyone in Atlas and Mantle is going to die, so the people left over, they're going to be here and they're going to be led by Robin in the end. Number 6, and this is definitely the biggest one. Flashbacks. Originally, this was just like an idea I had, but the more I thought about it, the more certain I am that this is going to happen. This is for a couple of reasons, one of which is just that they have 14 episodes again, so they have a lot of time to go into things. Given the statement that the entire events of the volume take place over maybe 2 days, you have a lot of time with 14 episodes to slot in non-linear things like flashbacks rather than just balancing plots alongside each other, so I expect that they will. Sure, the team is split up, and for parts there will be multiple storylines happening at once. It feels like that balancing act at the end of the scenes for Season 7 are sort of their practice run for this. Spreading out the conflict of Crow and the conflict with Neo and the Aesop's fight before the escape all sort of happening at the same time but across multiple episodes in pieces. I feel like this whole volume's going to be like that, but I don't think it's going to be just that. I really feel we're going to get at least one, but probably a couple flashbacks. And I mean actual flashbacks, like Ren's episode, not mudded out dot points like Hazel that just never goes well. It was a real mistake to do that, by the way, but that aside, we definitely have the setup for a lot of flashbacks here in this volume. In fact, I need to make a mini list in this list for all of them, but they're not going to be numbered, so anyway, here we go. First up is Nora. People have been clamoring for a Nora flashback simply forever, and if you've seen my other theories, plug, then you know not just what I think it will be, but why I think it will happen. But anyway, that's in that video, go check it out if you'd like. Also, there's Ironwood, to maybe find out what happened to him, since his character is kind of on a spiral, so it'd be nice to know before he's gone. You've got a war happening outside, and it sounds like he suffered heavily during a battle from what he's implied, so, you know, could be flashbacks there. Next one actually has several different reasons possibly, but could be Blake. One is if they do talk about Faenus at some point, like mentioned earlier, there might be some flashbacks into her life, which might help people who don't like her character after the reveal of her parents was done, which is a whole other issue I won't get into here, which also could be a chance to show more Faenus suffering, which the show has always somewhat lacked on screen, it's always been more talked about and shown, so if you put some of that in her history, might be better for her character context. But certainly the other option for a Blake flashback is one I thought they were going to do ever since Volume 7, and that's a flashback to her night out with Yang. Now let me be clear, this is not me opening up a shipping war. What it is me saying is that ever since I heard Celebrate fully from the soundtrack release, it's been the theory that it was supposed to go over that Blake and Yang scene. Because there's just no argument that is what the song is about, that night out. Whatever way you choose to read it, that is the song. So it either exists as a side story that just is within the song because you're not going to see it, or it was initially meant to go over that scene and you're just not going to see that now because that scene was cut for whatever reason. Which I can see a lot of reasons for, especially since we had the Ren and Nora kiss. If you also did stuff with Blake and Yang, they'd take away from each other and detract. So they just took that song and put it over the Robin scene because it's about the same time in the story where those things were occurring since they're on the same night. The convenience of those two different relationships advancing on the same night aside, I can definitely see the opportunity to put it in here in this volume as a flashback to that night if they address what Blake and Yang's relationship is, if it gets some advancement, be it romantic or not. Whether they're pushed apart or pulled together, I can see them reminiscing on that night, probably from Blake's perspective, but who knows, just to advance their characters. So we'll see if that happens. I can definitely see the opportunity for that here. Next up is just all the schnees. Weiss could have a flashback. flashback about her family, or her and Winter, or Winter could have them. We could get more insight into Willow if she has a flashback conversation with someone about life in that house. Or even Whitley could get his own flashback about his life that we haven't seen, possibly what it was like when Weiss was gone or growing up with Jacques. It's been speculated on he'll get some development, and this would definitely be the arc to do it, so yeah, we'll see if it happens, it definitely could. The only one I don't think is likely to get any kind of flashback is Jacques, obviously, but he will be in the flashbacks the others have, most likely, so, either way. Next is Cinder, because that backstory has been speculated on forever, and again there's teasers that she's from Atlas now, so maybe this volume we finally pull the trigger on that. Especially with Salem here and Atlas being destroyed, there's lots of triggers that could, facilitate that. Because quickly there could be tension between Yang and RWBY, and if so, if they're driven apart, there could be reminiscing flashbacks between them, learn more about them growing up together. It's possible. And last but not least is Summer. I don't think it'll be Team Stark, but I do think there's a decent chance we get a Crow flashback. I know that everyone wants Team Stark, but I don't think it'll be that. I think there's a good chance we get a Crow flashback about his situation with Summer after he learns what Salem said to RWBY. So yeah, we have a lot of potential for flashbacks this volume. I expect we'll at least see one, but wouldn't be surprised if we see more than that. Number 7. Salem takes some losses. This is war, and Salem needs to lose some stuff. We lost Clover, which isn't the worst thing, we only knew him for one volume, but even so, I'd be fully expecting for one of Salem's generals to die. Watts, I think, is just totally marked for death, but Tyrion could also go if it's time for him and Crow to have a final showdown. Or they drag that out for a while and space it out like they did from the volume 4 fight all the way through now to 7. That's somewhat more likely, because even though we really want to see him die, he's more of a character than Watts. Watts' whole story and skill set revolve around Atlas, and we should be moving away from there by the end of this volume, so he can go. Number 8. We will end running away. Yes, I really think that's how this will go. I think that the ending will be a dark reflection of Volume 6. The team will again be travelling, but this time not in high spirits, in defeat. Even though the ending of Volume 6 wasn't supposed to be the ending, it'd be the perfect mirror point here. Not to mention, it perfectly fits within the timeline they established for the volume. Whether or not you count as the end scene as really containing for the timeline, but it just allows for that. Rather than discussing the crazy awesome things they achieved, they will end with their tails between their legs. Metaphorically. Running away with the looming threat of Salem on their heels for the coming volumes, now that we've seen what she's capable of. Obviously, I don't know if they're going to peek into somewhere else the same way they arrived at Atlas and just sort of peeked in at the end of 6. They might arrive at Vacuo and just peek in, or there could be after credit scenes. Those of course don't count, but this isn't written to be the end of the story as far as we know, so they definitely should be leaving Atlas by the end because we're done here, and I think the perfect way to leave would be with the destruction in their rear view and Salem on their heels, so that's where I expect it to end. Number 9. Ironwood will die. This is almost a sure thing. This isn't about if he was right or wrong, if he's good or bad, or what you think of him. He basically has to die here. He said he'll sacrifice whatever it takes, and he really should, including his own life. He's committed to it, he stood up to her, and he's certainly no coward, but however it plays out, he should go. Not only do just all the headmasters die, but his conflict with the team and Oz should be resolved here. It'd be a drag to bring him along with us moving forward. This is old conflict. It'd be bringing baggage where we have a story to tell. Also, in general, he wouldn't run away. He should be wanting to stay at Atlas, but there likely won't be much left of Atlas. And also, if he's gone, then it sets up what we said earlier, that Robin will be in line to take his place, which is just the trajectory that it seems to be on. And no, I don't mean as general. She's not going to be general of the army. I just mean as a leader of Atlas. Also, conveniently, everyone would know that Robin and Ironwood are pretty much square before the battle happens because of this. Pretty unlikely that her getting arrested or anything like that is going to make its way through the general public's knowledge more than this giant presentation did. So as far as everyone's concerned, she and Ironwood are on the same page. If Ironwood's gone and she's around, she's your leader. Let's follow her and recover. Makes sense. Before I do number 10, a quick shout out to a runner-up idea that I really think is going to happen, but it's not a certainty, but I'm putting it here anyway. They will launch the tower. It's their chosen goal, or one of, for the team. And it will help them in the future. If they get communications up, they can call ahead to Vacuo, let the world know, etc. So that's gonna happen. And now number 10, the one everyone knows, Atlas will fall. An anticlimactic number 10 to be sure, but that's because it's so certain that it's just going to happen. Beacon fell, Haven didn't, Atlas will. The greatest threat to mankind and our big bad just showed up on the doorstep. The showrunners openly put it in everyone's head what will happen with the talk between Oscar and Ironwood about what happens if the staff is removed. And we need that staff in play for the overall narrative of the show, so it's coming out of there one way or the other. So Atlas will fall. Literally. A lot of time, the audience consensus on what will happen I kind of don't like or disagree with, and I like when shows find a way around it or do something interesting. But this one just seems like it is going to happen, which is okay. You can effectively turn an expected result that happens into a useful tool if you lean on impending doom and tragedy and anticipation, knowing that it's going to happen and you sort of can't stop it. As long as you don't play it like a surprise that no one saw coming, because obviously everyone did. But it's okay to build to an expected climax. It's also why I think we get some other tragedies along the way, because we need some unexpected losses to go along with everything else. Unlike Volume 3 where we didn't know the end was nigh, here we do know it is, but we need some gut punches along the way, so we'll see if that happens. But yeah, we're ramping the tragedy back up after several volumes of winning at the end, which is the right call in terms of overall flow. Our heroes need to be crushed down again to work their way back up to final victory. Salem is here, Atlas is held up by the one thing that she wants, and this isn't the planned end of the show, so that thing's fallen. And that are the 10 things that will happen in Volume 8. Be on the lookout for more quick lists from me in the next few days. Hopefully I can get them made before the volume starts. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, all those things, so you don't miss them. Until then, my name is Rigger, hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope I did alright.